treat here with David Matranga. You know, he's obviously a very acclaimed talent in what he does, and no sense in me, you know, fluffing any egos here. I want to hear it directly from the man himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. David Matranga.
Thank you, thank you.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
How's the morning been so far?
It's been great, man. A lot of people saying it's their first convention ever, which I love to hear. It's cool.
We don't often get Comic-Con conventions here to Wilmington. This is the one that I think is going to really stick.
You know, I feel like it is too. A lot of people have been saying this is my first one, and you know, I drove an hour to be here, or I live 15 minutes down the street, or whatever. So it's been cool.
There's someone I think who said in the last session they came in from Indiana.
Oh,
So,
sure.
We got people coming in from, all over the country, so it's just nice to have so many people. Have you been to Wilmington before?
I never have. I was thinking about it when this happened. I was like, I never have, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, welcome to Port City. Just
Yes.
as long as you're not coming from Leland to Wilmington, that bridge is going to cripple you because it is shut down. So
Right,
it's
right.
one of our big arteries.
Right.
But it's a great place, and again, we're happy to have you here. Let's start from the beginning. In doing my research, you know, watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, not that pertaining to you, but I watched a lot of stuff. And one thing that I just couldn't get over is that you, in addition to voice acting, your passion really is the theater. And tell me about how that's kind of shaped you to where like you are now. So like we'll start in the beginning. Like what piqued your interest first? Was it voices? Was it theater? You know, those kind of things.
Yeah, you know, I think I was just enamored by storytelling and actors as a younger person. The idea of taking on another person's journey, what they go through, what their life's about, the choices they make, like that always kind of fascinated me. And I found acting, well, I did some plays younger as a kid, like small things, you know, and then I found acting in high school, and that's when it really solidified for me, like, man, I want to do this. I want to do this with my life. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and I knew it was, and I'm a pretty practical mind as well as artistic, and so I thought, how do I do this? Like, so I went to college for it, which is not the most practical thing to do. A BFA in acting is, you know, no one's running to hire you. But it was what I loved, you know, so I was like, I'm all in on this, let's see what happens. But yeah,
You went to Yale, correct?
I did, yeah, I did my graduate work there. And that, again, was about the craft of acting. Like, I love it as an art form, as a craft, I really do. And it's become so many different things now, you know, so there's so many different avenues that you can do it, YouTube, TikTok, I mean, it's so yeah, you know, theater is my first love just because that's where I kind of started, and there's no better acting sort of relationship between the audience and the actor on a stage is a unique relationship. It's really cool when something happens in a story and you can feel the energy in the room change, you know, and audiences don't realize that, and this happens for anime or voice acting as well. It's just a delayed kind of reaction. But audiences don't realize how crucial of a piece of the creative puzzle they are. Like, when you're doing a play, you don't really know what it is until you do that first run in front of an audience and you get reactions. So anyway, that was kind of my entry into acting, and it's I still use all of that technique and stuff in the booth. So I could keep talking about that. I could go on.
Well, what are some of your favorite plays that you've done?
I just did a world premiere of a play. So I used to do 5 or 6 plays a year. I lived in New York. I've done stuff in New York, all around the country, stuff like that. But I just did. So I don't do as much as I did before. But I just did a play called American, which is a world premiere, brand new play, just really topical. But then I love classics like, you know, I love Shakespeare stuff. I love Arthur Miller, View from the Bridge is one of my favorite plays. I could Tennessee Williams, Eugene O'Neill plays. There's a lot of great playwrights out there, and a lot of them are writing now for like favorite television shows. I love the show Succession. And those are all, a lot of playwrights write in the writers' room for those shows. So it's one of the reasons there's such great dialogue on television now. And anyway, yeah.
So your big break, let's talk about that. How did that come about? What kind of led you to your first major role?
You mean in general? Or, well, in voice acting.
In voice acting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've been voice acting for a long time now. Really, before anime was or is what anime is now. And like I said, I always did voices as a kid. I loved taking, and even when I'm doing, theater or on camera stuff, I still start with, even though there's the physicality there that you have at your disposal to create a character, I still start with it from a voice perspective too. I love dialects, accents, people speak differently. I mean, even in some of my anime characters where it's a similar tone, if you really listen, there's a small little nuances just because it's a different person, it's different. So my first foray into anime, I had an agent, and they got me an audition for what they called a cartoon at the time, and I didn't really know what I was walking into. I had done some voice acting commercials and industrial narration stuff like that, and I booked a lead role, two seasons, 50 episodes. That was my first anime. So I kind of got thrown the deep end. It was called Orphan, Sorcerer Stabber Orphan, which is way back in the day, like 20 years ago. They just did a reboot of it, which I voiced 2 seasons of that. So that was my first kind of entry. But I would say, it's interesting. It's hard to talk about like a big break with anime or voice acting specifically, because it's only been in the last 10 years that anime has become so huge. I mean, it wasn't really until Attack on Titan, which was like 2013, that people started reaching out to me, hey, can you come to this convention? Hey, and Attack on Titan set the stage for shows like My Hero, and Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer. But there are other animes that I did prior to Attack on Titan that, because of the interest in anime, they're throwing them up on Hulu, and all of a sudden people are talking to me about that show that I did back in 2011.
Wow.
So it's an interesting trajectory. So yeah, I would say, I mean, my break in anime was that first lead role, and I was like, oh, I love this. This is so cool. It's a way to get to act. It's not something that I planned on, really doing, but I love it. And then I just kept doing it, really consistently for years, and then really 2013 was when Attack on Titan happened, and that was one of the ones that got much bigger. And then My Hero was 2016. I just did Trigun Stampede last year, which is a reboot of a classic anime. So yeah, it's been good. And then there's things like Buddy Daddies, which is an original anime that I did last year that I love so much. It's 1 season. It's not, some breakthrough hit. The way they define huge animes, it really crosses. People that don't watch anime know about that show.
Yeah.
That's when oh, that's a really popular show,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, from when you started to now, the industry has changed a little bit, especially with the pandemic and everything like that. Prior to 2020, you're going into studios and recording stuff. Now it's a little different for you. Now you actually have your own kind of home studio.
Yeah, I always had a home set up just for recording auditions, right? But it was not nearly as professional as it is now. You really, I think it was April or March of 2020 when I realized I gotta pivot, I gotta figure something out. And it's been an evolution, but yeah, I've got a professional home studio, and I can connect to everyone remotely, and high-speed business internet access that doesn't create drops in digital packets, and I love it. It's great, but it's kind of gone back to more of a hybrid now. I mean, for all of 2020, all of 2021, we recorded from home. And it was great. It opened up a lot of opportunities for different places. I did some video game with a director who was in Italy, some people that are in the UK. It's cool. But it does pose challenges for audio engineers and mixing, really. You know, when a show gets done, then goes to a mixing engineer, and they mix that show so that it sounds even, they raise levels, just like every movie we watch is mixed professionally. So when you've got 20 different spaces, like different booths from different places, you have to mix that, and it can be challenging. So yeah, now it's about a 50, I don't know, maybe even 60-40 hybrid of going into studios, recording from home. It's all depending on the
Which
client.
do you prefer? Do you prefer in-person stuff, remote stuff? I know, obviously you can't be in Italy with a director
Right.
times, but like if you're working on a series with, several other voice actors, would you prefer to be there in person, or would you just prefer to be remote?
If I had to choose, I probably would say I prefer going into the studio. There's a certain level of freedom that I have there where I don't have to think about anything else except the acting. I can be a little freer. Now I've got my setup set up though that I feel that at home as well. So it's not preferred. They're just both different. I mean, if I don't have a bunch to say in a session, I would love to just be able to do it from home. Just because, I can log on, we can lay it down, here we go. But if it's a really intense session or something, it really depends. It depends on the client too. But I'm pretty flexible either way with those. Yeah.
So, away from what you do on screen or behind the microphone, if you will, what do you like to do off screen? What's some fun leisure activity that you like to take part in when you're not voicing over stuff?
I'm a big family guy. I love my family. My sister has 4 kids, so I love hanging out with them. My niece is, she's playing high school basketball now, and I'm like going to all those games. I was actually playing basketball with my niece and nephews and that's how I injured my leg and tore my Achilles. So yeah, I love to hang with them. They're at the point now where they're like, oh yeah, great. They were so into My Hero for a while, and now they're like, Demon Slayer. Now, yeah, I just want to watch Demon Slayer. I was at a convention in Houston, which is where they live, and they were like, yeah, can we meet Zach Aguilar? I'm like, yeah. He gets through his line. But no, I love hanging out with them. I'm a pretty active person. I like to be outdoors. I'm trying to think of what else. I enjoy a good conversation,
I hope not to disappoint.
I like to connect with people, I like to hear about what people are going through or what they're about. That's something that is interesting to me always. I don't know.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, it's a toss-up between like burgers or pizza. I'm pretty simple that way. I'm a big burger guy though. I think I'd go with that. If I could choose, like a good burger.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And I guess before we open the floor up here to questions, my final thing is, and I ask this to Sonny, I'm going to ask this to everyone.
Sure.
What do you hope to be remembered for? Whether it's your legacy, whether it's a character, when people think back on the name David Matranga, what do you want them to think?
Honestly, the best compliments I ever get are when people say they had a great time chatting with me, or a good interaction, or I seemed genuine or authentic. Because, I think that shows through in my work. I think that a lot of the characters that I've been asked to voice are ones that are, there's a lot of nuance to. They're a little tricky. They aren't just, this action hero or this thing. There's more to them. And I take a lot of pride in that. The fact that I think my ability, my vocal quality, which is just genetic, lends itself to that. And so I would say that on the acting side, but more than that, just that I was a real person to chat with, honestly. It means a lot to me. I was at a convention recently, and I had someone that was working at the table with me, and then someone was here taking photos. And this person just said, I've never, the way that you interact with each person is really special. It's like you give them the time, and that meant a lot to me. I'll never forget that. So yeah, that's probably what I would want to be remembered for more than anything.
No, I think it's easy. We were talking earlier today. I think you were on a conference call. Nicest guy in the world here. Right?
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm glad about that.
Thank you.
Let's open the floor up to questions, shall we? Let's see. We got the wireless microphone over here. So if you have questions, please raise your hand, and we'll bring the microphone around to you, and we'll just start that way. Yeah, we got one right down here. Get the gentleman with a really bright light. You're gonna have to talk in the microphone though, because I think they're
Yeah, so Mr. Matranga, you mentioned theater, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I know you worked with Austin Tyndall on a couple things. We met him a couple of years ago at a convention, and he was big on that. I was wondering if you've done anything outside of anime, like any kind of theater, Shakespeare, anything like that with him, or?
I never have. We've talked about that quite a bit. I mean, there's a handful of voice actors that I know that have come from the theater, and then some that have come from radio and television. I mean, and the cool thing about voice acting is there's no one path to it. A lot of people get there in different ways. But yeah, we've never done. We talk about it sometimes. And it'd be really cool to do a show together, like a live show. And there's a lot of actors that I've worked with in anime that have a background in that. It would be so cool to do a play with all of them. What if it was an 8-person cast and we just had a bunch of us, doing something completely different. But yeah, Austin's awesome. I've done some work with him, as in voice acting where we've acted opposite each other, and it's cool. The interesting difference between theater and voice acting is, when we're acting, it depends on what type of voice acting. If you're doing what they call a prelay, which is mostly Western animation where the actors are in the same room, but when you're dubbing, and other video game stuff as well, you're not in the room with the actor. So sometimes you're acting with nobody. If I go in to voice Todoroki and no one else is recorded before me, I'm not hearing anyone. I just read the line, I know what's being said to me, and so you really have to, you're imagining a couple of things, this isn't exactly what you asked, but with theater, you've got someone right there in front of you, and you're vibing off of them, you're getting their energy, they're throwing something at you, you're picking that up. It's a different thing, but you kind of have to imagine that happening in voice acting. My first television gig ever, I did a episode of Law and Order, and I was at the very beginning. I was a doorman, and it was at the beginning when they find the dead body or whatever, right? And the actor that I was supposed to be talking to was not. He had already shot his scene. So even in on-camera stuff, I was acting with like an assistant director who was around the corner with and it was challenging. It was like, oh God, I'm just talking to nobody, and I have to pretend that they're there talking to me. But anyway, yeah, I would love to do a show with Austin. He does a lot of improv comedy and stuff as well. Great guy, and I've never really seen him on stage either, so it'd be fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Megan, and I had actually 2 questions
Okay.
I was wondering for you. What is your favorite line from the Anime Buddy Daddies that you've done as Ray?
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, my favorite line. My mind is going through all those episodes. It's the line. Isn't there a line about? I love the quote about. I can't have a cat, but you can have a kid. That line, I love that line. Most of my favorite lines of his are just sounds, like the alpaca line. I love that. I love just his kind of like sort of annoyed little reactions. Man, I love that show so much though. I want there to be a season 2 so bad. It just won an anime award for best original anime. Yeah.
And my second question is, how many times do you think Todoroki has used his dad's credit card for stuff, not letting Endeavor know?
I don't think ever, maybe. I think he'd probably be too scared of the potential punishment or retaliation or whatever you want to call it. I think he might use it now, though. Oh, here, what's this? I think he might use it now. Early on, though, I don't know. I think it was a rough childhood.
All right.
Thank you.
Another question right up from here. Second row, rather.
My name is Derek, and
Awesome.
I wanted to ask, what was your favorite part about voicing Todoroki?
Oh man, it's so hard to answer. I mean, my first favorite moment, I think, was during the sports festival fight with Deku. That fight, man, for both of their characters, kind of just moved them forward in a great way. And then season 6, no spoil. I don't know. I'm sure there's people who haven't seen it yet, but there's an episode there where we find out some stuff about the Todoroki family. That is kind of one of my new favorite episodes. I was so stoked to do that because I knew it was coming. And when I got into the booth to record, I was just like, I was at like a 12 already. And the director, Colleen, had to be like, okay, it's a little hot. We can bring it down. We'll get there. But I was just like, let's go. So I love that moment too. But overall, I mean, again, it's kind of what I was saying earlier. I've just been lucky enough to play characters that, you know, Todoroki's really close to me now. I mean, I've lived 2016, you know, so like a long time that I've been, you know, voicing him. At the beginning of getting into the character, it was not as easy as people might think. You know, people think, oh, he's a flat, monotone character, you know, but it's hard to do that and to find the right level. Many times I would go in and I would start in season 1 or 2, and the director, I would be like, I'd do a take, and they'd say, well, that's a little bit too excitable. Let's bring it down a little bit. Then I would overcorrect, and they'd be like, okay, now it sounds like he has no heartbeat at all. So let's split the difference. And then I'd find that groove. So he's just a special character, you know. So much going on, so much growth, a really nuanced, interesting backstory. So I love everything about it. I feel a responsibility to that story, you know. Yeah, thanks for asking that.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Eliza, and my question is, of the characters that you've played, or maybe archetypes is the right word, is there an archetype that you haven't gotten to play yet that you'd be interested in taking a pass at?
You know, I've always wanted to be able to play the traditional, like, shonen lead character. Typically, that's usually a boy. I mean, the shonen sort of trope is, you know, boy who is maybe the underdog, finds his courage and becomes a hero in some way, you know, or becomes whatever the word is for that show. I've played characters like that in the past, but they weren't really necessarily popular shows. I would love to play, and that character or archetype is changing a little bit. There are a lot of characters that are, you know, like Denji in Chainsaw Man. You could call that, but it's a little bit different. So they're kind of playing with the form, which is awesome, which is what all art should do in some way, you know. So yeah, I would love to play one of those type of characters. Maybe someone who is, you know, the underdog, who isn't that powerful, or doesn't have the genetics, or doesn't have whatever, and then finds his way there, you know. That would be cool. That's kind of been on my list for the last couple of years as we see these different shows come out. So yeah. I don't think of anything else there, but yeah. Hello.
Hi, I'm Alan. 2 questions.
Okay.
Have you ever read ahead into the manga and like picked a pivotal point to just go over and over and like get really excited for, and then, you know, or do you just read the manga as your character?
I will read manga sometimes when I'm auditioning for something to get an idea of what the dialogue was like, or what the artist was intending, or what the manga, you know. I don't typically read it after I've gotten a role. I have friends who read and they will tell me about it. I don't care about the spoilers, like, you know, because coming from the theater or a film or whatever, or television, you read the whole story. Like, I know, you know what the ending is, and part of the talent, part of the craft of acting is to play that moment specifically in the present moment without indicating anything about what's gonna happen. And so I've just always been trained to do that, you know. People ask, have you gone on the journey with Todoroki? Like, did you know that this was gonna happen? It's like, if you play the moment truthfully, then you'll always be truthful as the story goes. You know, it'll always sort of be in line. So I don't really read the manga for two reasons. You kind of said it one of them you said in your question, which is you can get so fixated on a moment and get so excited about a moment, and then it might look different in the anime, or the dialogue will be different. So I don't want to get too attached to it, but I like to know what's happening. Like season 7 of My Hero is coming up. I know that there's major stuff gonna go down. I know what those things are, but I don't know how they're gonna really show up, you know? I don't know the order they're gonna show up in. And so that helps me. I like to get excited about it, but I don't wanna know too much because I don't wanna get too attached, you know? Because my job is to do whatever is right there in front of me as authentically, truthfully as possible, right? So yeah, I don't really read too much. Sometimes I will go back and read after, you know, the show's over. And that's also hard too, because then it'll be like, oh, why didn't they put that in the anime? Like I'm in a show called Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. And yeah, it's Justin Briner, who plays Deku, is the lead in that, and I'm one of the other characters in that, Teru Minamoto. It's a great show, but I found out that there were certain things left out, and I'm like, you know, so yeah, you can get too attached. But there are some actors who feel totally different. They don't want to know anything about it. They don't want to know. I mean, people ask me about Attack on Titan. Did you know about Bertolt in season 1? And I didn't know when I got cast, but I did know in season 1. And if you go back and you watch the first time Bertolt speaks, I think it's like episode 3, you can sort of see that he's not saying everything. You know, it's like him and Raina and Aaron, and he's not saying everything. You wouldn't know if you didn't know, but if you go back, you're like, you know, so anyway, I don't even know, that's not even part of your question, but yeah. Go ahead.
And then my second one, you played Nicholas D. Wolfwood in Trigun Stampede.
Indeed.
How was that? Was that a fun role for you?
Oh man, I like, people, I don't know if anyone's here that has come by and chatted with me about that, but I'm totally geeked out on that show. Like I jammed the soundtrack in my car, which I've never done for any anime I've ever been in. I mean, I like the music. It's not like I don't like music, but like that opening number, I'm like, boom, let's go. Yeah, that show's interesting. It brings up a couple of things. Taking over, like, so I wasn't in the original classic anime, you know, and Naitao, the mangaka, wanted to do it in a new way. And in Japanese, they recast everybody from the original. The English cast kept Johnny, which I think you kind of had. Yeah, I'm really glad they did. So that role is interesting because I know it's a popular role in that series, a fan favorite role, and to take over a role like that brings some pressure to it as an actor. You don't want to be bad. You don't want to be disappointing. You can't. Not everybody will like you, and that's fine. But like I just did Ken Masters in Street Fighter 6, the new Street Fighter, and it's a departure from Ken's normal thing. And it was nerve. I mean, that's a huge character. People main him, they love him. And so there's a certain added pressure when you're doing that. And so Wolfwood had that added pressure of like, I want to do my best with this, you know? I want the thing. I mean, every actor, they're lying if an actor tells you they don't care what people think. Like, every actor cares. You just have to have a thick skin about it. And it goes back to what I said in another question. If I just do my job and do what I love as to the best of my ability, then it'll be good. It'll be what it's supposed to be, you know. But yeah, I love that show. It's one of the only, and I've already watched it twice through. I'm into it. You know what? I know that there was a lot. I love to talk to people about it. This goes back to my liking conversation thing.
Yeah.
I always ask people when they come up to get something signed or Wolfwood Pop or whatever, did you watch Trigun Stampede first and then go back and watch the original, or did you watch the original first and then watch it? Because there's a different opinion about things depending on what order you watched it. Were you a fan of the original, or did you fall upon Stampede, love it so much, and go back and watch the other? And there have been some people that I can't get used to the animation, I don't like the new animation, and I get that. There was a bunch of buzz about, oh, it's gonna be, it's CGI, and I know where that comes from, because sometimes they just over CGI stuff, and then it looks like, what is it, it doesn't look right. But they really did it well with this one, I was so glad. So yeah, I'm excited for there to be a season 2. I know kind of what goes down with that. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But it is an interesting journey to take over a role like that. You kind of, it's more nerve-wracking than originating a role. Because you originated, it's what you do, and hopefully it's well received, but there will always be a comparison when you take something over. And so you have to you're nervous, but then when you're doing it, you block all that out. And you have to have that ability. I always tell people, voice acting is an interesting form of acting because it's easy to get in your own head. And one of the things you want to do on stage or on camera is get out of your own head. Being in your head can ruin creativity, your performance, and it does it in the booth too. But you've got headphones on, so you can hear your own breathing, and you can really go down the spiral if you're having a bad day. I once did a commercial session for a resort, and it was a national commercial, and I had a bunch of different clients on the phone, on the call. So it was Coca-Cola and Wendy's and representatives from those big companies, and everybody wanted me to say things in a certain way, right? Lift this and lift that, and I started to spiral. I was like, I'm not doing it right. They don't like me. Why did they cast me? I kept getting, and so you have to figure out how to get yourself out of that. And I had to talk myself out of it and say all right, nope, I got cast, a bunch of people auditioned for this, they wanted me for this, and it was fine, it went well, but it can be a dangerous place sometimes. Yeah. All right, next question. This is very bad. Hello.
Hi, my
Hello.
name's Bren, and I was wondering, I have 2 questions.
All right.
I was wondering, so whenever you're stumped and you can't really get into that character's head, what do you choose to do when you're burnt out and you don't know what to do?
Well, thankfully, anime, any form of acting is a collaborative, I can't think of the word, conversation. You always have a director to bounce something off of. Even when you're creating a role at the beginning, people ask, how did you find the voice for this or that? And you take a stab at something, and then the director will give you some feedback, like, hey, let's try that with a little more grit in your voice, or let's go a little higher in your register, and whatever. One of the things I do is connect to my physicality. So a lot of my training as an actor is physical training, yoga, stage combat. When you're creating a character, and I do this in the booth, if I'm going in to record Wolfwood, I stand in a different way than if I'm going to record Shoto Todoroki or Ray from Buddy Daddies, or I stand in a different way. I have to. If I was to go record Wolfwood right here in front of you guys, I would stand a little different. You might not see it or know that I feel it, and it affects my voice. So if I'm burned out and I can't find something, I'll step away from the mic a little bit, shake out my body, kind of take a minute, do some deep breathing, connect to the physicality. And then that usually will free you up. If you ever notice when people are asked a question, and I probably do it on panels all the time, but an acting teacher showed me this. An acting teacher, will ask you, what do you think your character wants in that moment? And people will do this. And they hold their breath while they're thinking. A lot of people, what do you want? What do you think about that? Well, and it's you're getting no oxygen to your brain. Like, you're not gonna be able to think of the answer. So just breathing, connecting to that, is a way that frees me up a bit. But there's also times where you just burnt out. And hopefully you have a working relationship with the director, whoever you're working with, where you can take a moment. There will be times where you can't, though. And so it's like, ask to go to the restroom and, be that weirdo in the restroom who's like, doing that, But yeah, you learn little things that you need for yourself. And so for me, it's that physical connection. And I think that's why, even though I've played a lot of nuanced characters, you can still hear a lot of stuff in that, because I always try to come at it from the full body perspective. Like, you can't act from the neck up. Like, that's not where our stuff lives. So, yeah.
Okay, my second question was in season 1 in My Hero when Deku and Todoroki were fighting, and Todoroki refused to use his left side, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Side, sorry.
Yeah.
How do you think he felt when Deku was trying to push him to use his full core potential?
So it's such a complicated question. I think he felt. I think when you go through trauma like that and you've made a decision based on that trauma, which is like, I'm going to deny this, I will deny this to the end of my life, that kind of stuff, you want to stick to your commitment. But when you make something like that, there's also something inside of you that says, what if I didn't? I mean, kind of always. Like, what if I didn't do that? And so I think he was in like a tug of war in his own body, in his own mind, of like, I see what Deku's trying to do. He doesn't understand what I've been through. How dare he say that to me? He doesn't even know me. He doesn't know what I've been through, who I am, Yet, I almost want to give in. So it's like this tug of war, and I call it a cognitive dissonance, right? Where like, two things can be true. Like, I want to deny my father completely for everything, but also he's my father, and if I'm going to excel in this school, I should use that. So it's a huge dissonance, tug of war type of thing. So I think that's what was going through, and that can make you do two things, right? You can get even more on the side of the denial, like, I will never do this. It can take you that way. Or you can break down, or you can give in. This is what I love about acting. It's what I love about like what we're all doing here. Like, it's insane to be a human being. It really is crazy. Like, we're all awesome because we're here, we're doing it. It's kind of a crazy journey. So, yeah, thanks for that question. I could go on about all this stuff.
What other questions?
My name is Siobhan.
Yeah.
When you did Clannad, what scene that you did in the movie that you felt that you knew it was going to be a hit?
I wish I could tell you that there was a scene that I knew it was going to be a hit. Honestly, there isn't one. I mean, there are scenes that come up, I don't know if it was from the movie, but on the train, certain scenes that were really emotional that I thought, I love this because I love doing this and it allows me the opportunity to do it. But both Lucy and I, who plays Nagisa, we had no idea that show was going to be what it is. No idea. We thought this is a slice of life anime. It's not for everybody. It's definitely not going to break into the mainstream in any way because it doesn't have X, Y, and Z qualities, whatever. And I was saying earlier, one of the first conventions I ever went to was a small convention. We were sitting at a round table, and everyone wanted to talk about Clannad, and I was shocked. I was like, really? Wow, I had no idea. And people were coming up and talking about what it did for them and how it got them through a tough time. And so the answer is there's no scene. We really didn't think it was going to be anything like that, but it's impacted a lot of people, and it's kind of that relationship I was talking about earlier between an audience and an actor. Live, you get that feedback, but it was 5 years later that I learned that Clannad was something, So yeah, grateful to be a part of that show, but Yeah, there was. I wish there was. I mean, there are shows that are true, like My Hero, where the first season we were like, all right, is this gonna be? Because they tell you things like, this show has the potential to be popular. And you hear that as an actor, and you're like, okay, cool, yeah, I would love to be in it, and let's go. But you also have the other mind that goes, yeah, a lot of people have said that about a lot of things. So you kind of take things as they go, and you know. But when My Hero hit, we didn't, even after season 1, we were like, okay, this is a good show. I like it a lot. I wonder if anyone will like it. Yeah, good question.
So we got a little less than 10 minutes, so we'll just take a handful more questions.
I'll try to be not as
Oh,
long.
no, you're doing great. Your voice is just so, like, soothing.
Calming.
Like, you just hear it, it's like, ah.
Someone was like, can you read on the Calm app? There's like some app, Calm app. I was like, sure, I'll read on that all day long.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you yoga and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like, oh, man.
Yeah, I've always threatened to do audiobooks, and yeah, I don't know, I think I would just put people to sleep maybe.
So going back, you said season 7 is coming out next month, right? Do you ever have like watch parties and stuff when new seasons and stuff come out?
We've done that before when it's been organized for like an event or something. We've never done it on our own. I mean, we don't all, you know, like we record alone, so you don't always see people, but we've done enough convention tours now together, at least in My Hero cast, where, you know, we have a good friendships and relationships with each other. So no, we've never done that. That would be actually really cool to do that and live stream it. That would be fun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like a watch along or something.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that would be cool to do for like a finale or something too. But yeah, season 7, I'm excited about that. And then there's a 4th movie as well that's coming out. So that should be fun too. I wish the movies were more accessible. I hear people saying like, where can I watch it? Where can I get it? And I don't know. I wish I did.
You think with all the platforms we have available to us, it's easy.
I know, it's all about licensing and who, yeah.
It's so complicated. All right, another question?
Yes.
Hello again.
Yes, should have done both at once
That's all
before.
right.
Sorry.
No, that's
but,
cool.
Appreciate you sharing the floor.
But I did want to ask if there is one, like, gosh, and this might not be clear, but if there was one like character arc or one sort of, Shoto's had a really complex character journey, I feel like.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you would like to explore more with him? Maybe, I mean, it can be part of the family drama, outside of that, like as he continues to grow as a person.
It's hard, you know, because I make it a point to not really have my own. I mean, I have very strong opinions about when I'm doing the work and what's in front of me, but I don't get into the I don't make it a point to have fantasies of what could be. I mean, I do, but I don't really give voice to those very much, just because I don't know what's going to happen, and you know. But I think that I would love to see him truly embrace his power as a person, you know, not just obviously as a character with powerful quirks,